So here on Raspberry Pi, we've already set up the Arduino IDE. We've installed it, and it was very easy to install. All we did was type in sudo apt install Arduino. Then we went to the Raspberry Pi menu, we went to programming, Arduino IDE. Okay, once it opens up, I've changed my default font by preferences, and I've made it just so we can see it. Yours will be smaller. So once we open it up, we made sure to set the serial port to an existing port on the IDE, in this case dev TTY USB 0, and the board we set to whatever board we're using. In this case, we're using the Nano 18 Mega 38. We know it's Mega. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to communicate between the Raspberry Pi and the Arduino. And there's an existing sketch, an example. So we're going to go to examples, to communication, and then we're going to go to physical pixel. Okay, so here we have physical pixel, and you notice that the default physical pixel here connects to LED pin, but we don't have it on LED pin 15. We have ours on pin 2, right? So what we need to do here is we need to go in and double check that this LED constant, so the pin that the LED is attached to, and we're going to go ahead and change that over to 2. Now everything else should be the same. So basically it starts the serial monitor. Pin mode, we see LED pin, that's just the 2 is set to output. And then it starts our loop, right? So this is our main loop. If serial is available, then it does a serial read. If we send it an H, it writes high to the LED pin, that's 2 in this case. It means it turns it on, it sends electricity to the pin. If we turn it to low, it turns the electricity off. That's basically it, right? Very simple. So let's go ahead and in our project, so basically we have this already in our project. Go to Pi Face Master. If we go to facial recognition, this I've saved. I made the change already just to we've done this project into alert.ino. So if you go ahead and open that up, it's just physical pixel, the example with the folder. I guess that'll change for you as well. Okay, so all right, so here we have the physical pixel again, and we change it to right. So okay, so so once this starts, what we should get is that we should be able to turn on the LED or off the LED by typing in capital L. So let's go ahead and get upload. I'm going to compile the sketch, upload it. We also need to open the serial monitor. We're going to go to Tools, Serial Monitor. And now, if we look down, if you look at the corner, right-hand corner of the screen, basically we type an H, enter. We just send it an H, right? So we turn the LED on. I type L and hit enter, turns the LED off. Hopefully, H, enter, we'll enter. Okay, so we can turn on and off the LED. So we see how that is working. Okay, so this is exactly how we're going to communicate from the Raspberry Pi to the Arduino. Now let's take a look at how we're actually going to use this in code. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the serial port. Now remember, once I've uploaded this, so this is the program that we're going to use to communicate from Python to our Raspberry Pi. So basically, all that we're going to do now is to programmatically send an H or an L over the serial port that the Arduino is connected to, and turn that LED on and off. So let's go shot. So this is already uploaded onto our Raspberry Pi. We don't really need to do it again in this case. Basically, to do something different with this input, we would need to edit this program. In this case, we're just turning the LED on. Let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so the Python code we're going to run is also from our this PiFace GitHub repository. So it's for face recognition _ alert. And let's take a look at what the code is doing. So here we have a couple of different things. From 3 to 4, we've added import serial and import time. You should double check your Linux installation. So we're going to be running this Linux installation. There's a couple things that we have to do. Sorry, we're going to be running this Python file, and there are a couple things. First thing that we need to do is that this script is going to look for a relative directory, trainer and data set. It's going to look for a directory relative to its location, not a fixed location only. So we do need to cd into that change directory cd into this file for it. So we're going to go ahead and select the path here, copy it, cd space Control-Shift-V, and enter. Now we're in this facial recognition folder. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to type in, we've created our virtual environment, and we can run this in our virtual environment. So we see our virtual environment right on the desktop. That was done in the previous video. So in order to install things in pip, now this should have been installed. You may not even need to do this next step as far as installing it, but we're just going to double check that we have serial and time comes with the Python. We don't have to serial. We do have to. Nice. Okay. Okay, so we're going to do Control R. Now we already typed in. We're just going to go ahead. Control R, and then I'm going to type in source. So basically, what we need is we need to type the word source, and then we need to find this bin activate. So I just went and found it in my history by typing Control R. You can also go into your virtual environment, go into bin, click bin, right click on activate and copy path, and then basically to get out of virtual environment, we just go to deactivate, and then we go to the source, and then we just paste that path to that virtual environment bin folder. Okay, so that basically sets our terminal to now be using that virtual environment. And the reason why we're going to do this is just so we don't have to keep typing the full path. Can we run pip out of this virtual environment without sourcing the virtual environment? Yes, we can. We can just put the full path to pip when we install things. It's a lot easier just to source the virtual environment. It is easier. So, okay, so I'm going to go pip install, and then it's actually pi serial, not serial. So pip install serial. Okay, and it's already installed. So that should have been in your installer script that you wrote earlier. But if you're not doing other parts of this video, then not. Okay, and that is the only thing that we need to install for this. If you can run file 3 in the GitHub repository, then 4 just has this additional serial. You would have already had to go through OpenCv, and that's the script. All right, so let's go ahead, and now we're going to run the script. So we know that serial is installed, and now we're going to go ahead and run this script. So we're in the facial recognition folder. Okay, so let's just double check. Yep, we're in the facial recognition folder here. We're in our virtual environment. We can see that it's parentheses. And now we're going to go ahead and run this All right, so let's take a look at what happens when we run this file. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter, and it's going to start up. All right, so we have our camera here, and we've already trained it on Linus Torvalds and myself. So one of the greatest programmers of all time, and an old man who likes to compute. Okay, so there we have it. We have Linus, right? So taking action for Linus. And so basically, Linus we've said is our authorized user. So we shouldn't see any alert when we show Linus, okay? Now, if I go in, not as an authorized user, we have another user who is not an authorized user, in this case. Okay, you should now see it's reading him as me because we haven't. It's reading Richard Stallman as me, so that. But I'm not an authorized user, so you should now see the LED blink. Okay, when it reads it as Linus, then you're going to see it blinking. So if we show me again, unknown user, right? Oh, it's not picking it up with the mask. But if we show an unknown user, then basically the light starts blinking. You should be able to see that light blink in the video. All right, so how is that working? Let's take a look. Okay, so we have a couple settings up at the top of the file. Remember that we want to quit the file. We're just going to go click into the terminal and do Control-C, and that will stop. Okay, so let's take a look at what we've set up here. So we have the names. Remember, these are the names that we set up earlier. Frank, none, and Linus. Authorized user is Linus. So if you notice when we show Linus, there's no blinking. And then we have the Arduino port. So basically we have this Arduino port. That is the Arduino port that we set up in our. If you notice, if we go back to Arduino, where we got that, we open up Arduino IDE. That's the port that we are connected to from Raspberry Pi to Arduino. Find that in the serial port, and this is exactly the same thing. So I just put that in a variable so it's easy to find. So here's our Arduino port. So basically what happens is that this is the loop that is sampling the video coming out. Okay. When it gets to confidence less than 100, it basically gives back the ID number of the person that it's looking at. Then it looks it up in the names with the ID. So remember, the ID is just the index of the user right. So for example, 0, the ID would be 0. This is the names list here. So so it looks up that name based upon the index, based upon the label returned from the classifier, and we get oddly named ID. So this should be named something else. So basically this ID gets changed from a number into a name at this point, and then it puts it on the screen as with our string ID. So it's basically OpenCv is putting the text on the screen, as well as the confidence level, and we see that when it's running. Then we call this take action. So basically, take action sends the name up to our take action function. And here we have our take action function. Takes in ID is being sent over the take action function. We're calling it username inside the function. So it takes a username. Okay, so prints taking action for username equals. Then we're going to, we create an object, right? So we create an object, we get the serial to get to serial communication. Notice that we use the Arduino port. That's the variable holding the string for the Arduino port, which is port 0. Then we say if username is not an authorized user. So we've created a second list of authorized users in which only Linus occurs. And then we have this time sleep, and then we basically make the light. Now this is a minimal example. This could be anything we want to do on Arduino. So we're triggering some action the Arduino is taking. It could be anything. Because of our Arduino program, basically this just blinks on and off at D, but it could operate a motor, it could do. All right. So let's go ahead and take it all the way through once, including training. Okay, so we're back in our facial recognition folder. We've already sourced our virtual environment. So we're going to go ahead and do our and run our face detection. So we're going to basically train it on, we're going to train the script on Richard Stallman. So Python. And let's see here. Okay, he's going to be number 1. So we opened up face recognition alert, and we changed, this is user 0, user 1, user 2. So we're going to train on user 1. Hit enter. And now it's running. So our user, our ID is user 1, so hit enter. Turn the camera on. Okay, there's our Richard. Okay, so there is our training set, or there is our data set. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to run our training. So we're Python again, and now we're going to train the classifier. So it will take the images with the data set, and now it's going to train on user 1. Okay, so an example of our user 1. Notice these are just a bunch of images. There's an example of it. Okay, let's train our classifier script. It's training. Okay, so now once again, based upon the authorized user list and the users in core face recognition alert, we should see a blinking LED light whenever a user other than Linus to the. Okay, here we go. So now let's watch for the LED up in the upper right-hand corner. Okay. Okay, so user is unknown here. Oh, there he is, Richard. Not a known user. So our alert is blinking. Here we have our known or authorized user. Updates. And we should see our lighten up. Okay, so that is how we're going to communicate between the Raspberry Pi and Arduino. Remember, when you want to quit the program, just Control-C in the terminal. Okay, so best of luck communicating between Raspberry Pi and Arduino.